Hello everyone. I wanted to make one more wine video this year to kind of extend the one that just went up on the YouTube page, I think yesterday or the day before, and which went up a week earlier for the patrons. And I wanted to extend that little case of Italian wine that I built as an introduction because I just recently bought a bottle that would have made it into that case were circumstances a little different. This is a Gran Selezione from Chianti Classico. And I'll talk about this in a minute. And but first, there were just a whole bunch of other Italian wines that did not make that case. I really thought that having 12 wines to play with the entire country would make things easier than the just introduction to all of wine case. It actually made things harder. I had to make many, many more heartbreaking decisions with this one. Don't ask me why. So I wanted to kind of outline an additional 8 bottles I would have thrown in were cases capable of holding 8 more bottles. So here we go. What would my 13th bottle have been? It would have been a bubbly. You'll notice that there were no bubblies in my case there. And yeah, let's talk about that. So I have a hot take. My hot take is Prosecco generally isn't worth it. There are some good ones, but you're paying more money for them. And Prosecco is always just going to have the problem, two fundamental problems. First problem is it's tank method sparkling wine, so they're fermenting in a tank, then pumping it into a bottle. And for the prices you can buy Prosecco at, you can also get traditional method, champagne method, bottle fermented stuff. That's generally just a hair bit better, or at least a hair bit more, champagne-y. So that's one problem. The other problem is, even if you want tank method, because you don't like the leasiness, the nuttiness you can get on traditional method wines, you want something with a little bit more pure fruit, and you're kind of okay with the harsher bubbles, you still have a problem because why would you go first to, Prosecco? Because you can go to Germany, you can get a sect, and last I checked, I'm sorry, Riesling beats Glera. Sorry, Glera, it's not a problem with you, it's a problem with literally every grape that isn't Riesling. So, for me, I don't go to Prosecco very often. However, there are some other sparkling wines in Italy which I think are more compelling. You do have Franciacorta, which makes a champagne-style sparkling wine. The problem is they're not actually that much cheaper than champagne, so it's more of a cool alternative. But there's something else, which I think is still kind of a little bit under the radar, Lambrusco. Good Lambrusco is amazing. It is unbelievably just versatile with food. You think, if you run into food which, your standard light red wines like Pinot Noir or Cabernet Franc or whatever don't work with, give Lambrusco a try, because this stuff is just fantastic with pairing with food. Lambrusco is an absolute minefield. Some of them are just harsh, red winey candy. And they're not good, but the good ones are worth exploring. This is my favorite house right now. This is Lini 910, and this is their standard Lambrusco Rosso. This is also a way for me to get Emilia Romagna on the table, so good stuff. It's also the only bottle of these 8 that I actually have on hand. So yeah, we're just going to leave this here because I like this stuff. All right, my second, what would have been? My second extra bottle, my 14th bottle in this imaginary extended case, would have been a cheap, crappy Pinot Grigio, because you need to know what that tastes like. I would have gone with if I was at Binny's, the Terra del Noce, which is $6, and it's extremely basic. It's apple and a little bit of lemon and half a rock and some cheap beer. That's what it tastes like. But, you can get by on that. It's fine. You can use it for risotto, whatever you need. I tend to be a little bit bearish on Pinot Grigio just because they can make good wines, but you're paying more money for them because in the U.S. it's kind of a brand. But it's not something I get very passionate about. It's not even an indigenous Italian grape. It's a mutation of Pinot Noir. And if you want a mutation of Pinot Noir, and you don't want to buy a crap Pinot Grigio because you've already had them before, a better alternative would be Pinot Bianco, which is another mutation of Pinot Noir, but it tends to be a little bit leaner and meaner and works better with the intense minerality you tend to get in northern Italy. Terra Alpina makes a good one. They're up in Alto Adige, so far northeast Italy, which is one of the regions that kind of got shortchanged in my case. So yeah, go buy that. Go buy either the Terra Alpina Pinot Bianco. It's like, I don't know, $13-14. Or if you haven't tried it, but a basic Pinot Grigio yet, go get the Terra del Noce. Third wine, Sagrantino. From Umbria, which gets Umbria on the table. Sagrantino it's a little bit like Petit Verdot or Tannat. I'm sorry, I should say Tannat. It is one of the most tannic grapes in the world. It's these tiny, tiny little grapes. It's grown in the town of Montefalco in Umbria, which is right on the side of a volcano. So it's these teeny tiny little grapes, and when you vinify them, you get a big old mouthful of tannins. But once you get past the tannins, they're unbelievably gorgeous, complex, perfumed wines. The best wine I have ever had in my life was a Sagrantino. A Paolo Bea from, I think it was 2006, maybe 2007. It was just like, hold on, even extremely tannic, but just maximalization of all the things you could possibly do in my mouth. That was that wine, and I adored it, and I haven't been able to have to source it since, to my dismay. Anyway, Sagrantino is a fabulous grape, hugely tannic wines, but if you have the food that can handle them, they also just bring an enormous amount of nuance and complexity. Colpetrone makes a good one. You can still get their 2015 at Binny's. So yeah, that would be my 15th wine. Colpetrone Sagrantino di Montefalco, 2015. Let's see. 16th wine. I would go to... I would also keep going. I would stay back in northeast Italy. I would go to... get one of the indigenous varietals there. There's a couple. There's Teraldigo. There's I'm forgetting one. There's another red varietal, but the one I would pick is Schiava. Schiava it makes a light red wine. It's one of those wines like Pinot Noir you can see your fingers through. But they smell crazy. They smell like a bottle of maraschino and like a whole bunch of Skittles exploded. They smell completely bonkers. But quite dry on the palate and really, really versatile with food pairing. I mean, it's a great alternative, again, to Pinot Noir, to your Beaujolais, to your standard, versatile, high-acid, light red wine. I would get the Rottensteiner Schiava. I think we're on the 2024 now. Whatever the current vintage is, it'll be fine. My 17th wine would be an Arneis, which is my favorite. Hold on. I put notes here. It's Arneis. Sorry. When people think of Piedmont white wine, they tend to think of Gavi. I like Arneis more than Gavi. Gavi tends to be, even the good ones tend to be a little bit on the simple side. Arneis can be a little bit more full-bodied and medium-bodied. They tend to bring some appley character, but a little bit of nuttiness too. So it's a fun kind of Piedmont answer to Soave, and it's a little bit under the radar still. It's a little bit nerdy, so you'd pop it for friends. And again, it's another. Stop buying the crappy Pinot Grigio. Go buy an Arneis instead. I will leave it there. I'm going to bring up my other notes. Sorry. So the one I would get would be the Marco Porello Roero and Arneis. Again, I didn't write the vintage, but that's what I would grab. It looks inexpensive. It looks cheap, but that doesn't mean it's bad. I would go for it. So what are we on now? Wine 18? Got to get a Moscato. Moscato d'Asti. I have spoken up in defense of Moscato before. Moscato wines are the best pool wines ever made. If you're rolling up to a pool with a $200, high-end Burgundy or something, or a cab, for God's sake, you are doing it wrong. Bring a Moscato. They are slightly fizzy. They are extremely floral. They are grapey. They are sweet, but not too sweet. They're just refreshing, low ABV pounders, and I love them. If you've had the crappy Moscatos from, Barefoot or whatever, do not use that as a judge of the category. Real Moscato from the Piedmont is fantastic. So the one I would buy is the Vietti. Vietti's Moscato tends to have a little bit higher acid than other examples of the kind, which I enjoy. I would spend the 14, $15 on a Vietti Moscato d'Asti. All right, moving on. Another cheapie. I would go back to southern Italy. I did hit Puglia twice, so why not do thrice for number 19? Coppi, Siniscalco Primitivo 2020. Primitivo is genetically it's a variant of Zinfandel, or rather, Zinfandel is a variant on Primitivo. I think originally they all come from Croatia, but whatever. Primitivos tend to be earthy. If you like Zinfandel, if you like that kind of mix of red and black fruit, that kind of mix of tart acid with a little bit of raisiness, because Zinfandel's fun as a grape. Primitivo's fun as a grape because it ripens unevenly. You can get some really, really ripe grapes on the bunch and then some unripe grapes on the same bunch. So you kind of get a mix of flavors. A lot of American producers in California use this as an excuse to just let the thing hang until it starts to raisin. But never mind. We're back in Italy with this. We're back in real winemaking. Primitivos, especially if the producer's keeping them under 14% alcohol or so, are just great food wines. Pop them for pasta, pizza, lasagna, anything you like, and they're cheap. So this one is a hair over $10, so that would have been my 19th wine. And for wine number 20, I noticed I didn't really splurge. I didn't go over $20 on any of my white wines in the case as built. So this is where I would. I would go and buy a Montenidoli Vernaccia di San Gimignano Tradizionale. And I will tell you why, because it's a Tuscan white wine, which is something I don't think we talk about it. Tuscany makes some phenomenal white wines, particularly, and Vernaccia is a great example. The fun thing about this one is it gets skin contact. It is an orange wine, but it is not like the usual orange wines you will see in the natural wine section, where it's just some guy has gotten some grapes and couldn't sell them for anything and decided, hey, maybe I can sell these if I just let them stew on their skins for 2 weeks. That is not what this is. This is a traditionally made skin contact wine from an area that traditionally made it that way. So it's just Vernaccia, which has been allowed to, macerating the skins for not even that long, like 5, 6, 7 days, something like that, less than a week. And it just gives it this lovely texture. And it's a little bit of a pot nose. It does have a kind of pot kind of character to it, but it's a phenomenal white wine that is well worth trying. And you can age it if you'd like. I think they improve with age, honestly. That would be wine number 20. But back to the original case, I did have a Chianti Classico Reserva in the case, but it's not the one I would have bought if I could have gotten this. This is not available at Binny's. I bought this at Vin Chicago, up on the north side. This is the Castello di Gabbiano, Bellezza Chianti Classico Gran Selezione. And let me explain to you what that means, because this is why I'm making this video, honestly, because this is a category, it's relatively recent. I think they only started it in 2013 or so. But and it's kind of flown over under most people's radars, at least in the U.S. But this category, the Gran Selezione category in Chianti Classico, which of course is the original region of Chianti before they decided to expand it, this is really Chianti's attempt to catch up to Brunello in terms of prestige and level of winemaking. So if you talk to boomers who have lots of money and you ask them, what are the best Italian wines, the best wines from Tuscany, they will tell you it's Brunello di Montalcino. And there's good reason for that. Brunello is kind of, it's closer to the coast than Chianti is, so it gets a little bit warmer. You tend to get firmer tannins, more ripe, almost jammy fruit sometimes. Sometimes they get too jammy for me. And they age the heck out of them. And so let me give you the legal requirements for Brunello, just so you can get a sense of what you have to do these things. They have to be 100% Sangiovese. No other grapes allowed. It has to be Sangiovese. And it's their own variety, but also. And basically, if you crank the math and the regulations, it has to be aged a minimum of 4 years, including 2 years in barrel. Although this is Tuscany we're talking about, it's Italy. We can have really big barrels if you want, and 4 months in bottle. That's pretty stringent, and these things get expensive. You're never going to find a Brunello for under $35-40. They just cost a lot of money to make because there's a ton of prestige attached to them. They also make some basic Rossos in Montalcino. I prefer Chiantis, honestly. Fight me. Anyways, back to Gran Selezione. They introduced this about a little over a decade ago as a category. Right now, it has to be 80% Sangiovese. It will be 90% in a few years. They're cranking that up. But that leaves you some room to include some other indigenous varietals, which is traditional for Chianti. A couple of other international varietals, although I still haven't seen that on any Gran Seleziones I've had. Generally, they tend to be all Sangiovese or Sangiovese and a little bit of Cananello or the other varietals from Tuscany. They have to be aged a little bit less time, not 4 years. We're talking minimum of 30 months, including 3 months in bottle. So you don't have to barrel these, but again, de facto, everyone does. And then there's the thing that Brunello doesn't do, which is, I think, their Chianti dunking on Brunello a little bit. Gran Seleziones, they have to be produced from estate-grown grapes. The winery has to own the vineyard that the grapes are being sourced from. So, but that means there ain't never going to be a Kirkland, Gran Selezione. You are never going to see wineries sourcing, whatever cheapo grapes they can get from Chianti Classico to throw together in a Gran Selezione. It is legally disallowed. You can do that in Brunello, and there are a lot of not that great Brunellos out there that I believe do this. But this is meant to be a showcase of what wineries can do with the vineyards that they own. And a lot of the ones I've tried, including this one, are single vineyard. This is let me tell you about this one from Gabbiano. Gabbiano, certainly by no means a high-flying Chianti producer. They've been around for a while. They're around, you'll see them, but not, at anyone's upper tier. But they do own, they're here showing off what they can do, basically. This is a single vineyard bottling. It's all from the Bellezza vineyard. It's 100% Sangiovese. This thing, it's 2018 vintage, which was a weird vintage in Tuscany, but still. 16 months in a combination of Tuscan oak large casks and a couple of 500-liter barrels, which is more French in style. So they're mixing traditional and modern a little bit. So that is it. I mean, it's an incredibly arduous wine to make, and it cost $20. I was able to grab this at Vin Chicago for $20, which is about half of what I would pay for an entry-level Brunello. And I would bet money that this will outperform that. I don't know yet. I haven't popped it. These tend to be like, very Sangiovese driven. They bring the oak. They bring the oak, but not in an overt way like a Bordeaux. Nevertheless, I would expect this to behave kind of at the level of, say, a basic level class growth Bordeaux. We're talking that level of winemaking for $20. So yeah, if this had been at Binny's, and I kind of shown it in my Binny's case, I would have. So I will pop this tonight, I guess, and report on how it goes to the to the patrons. That is my nerding out about Italian wine a little bit more. Thanks for indulging me, and bye.